1 Kings chapter 7. The building of Solomon's house. Shlomo built a palace for himself, taking 13 years to finish it. For he built the house of the Lebanon forest 175 feet long, 87.5 feet wide and 52.5 feet high, on 4 rows of cedar posts, with cedar beams on the posts. It had a roof made of cedar and supported by beams lying on 45 posts, 15 in a row. There were 3 rows of window openings, placed so that the windows on facing walls were opposite each other at all 3 levels. All the doors and doorways were rectangular and opposite each other at all 3 levels. He made the columned hall 87.5 feet long and 52.5 feet wide, with a columned, corniced porch in front of it. He made the hall of the throne his place for dispensing justice, that is, the hall of judgment. It was covered with cedar from floor to ceiling. His own living quarters, in the other courtyard, set back from the hall, was similarly designed. He also made a house like this hall for Pharaoh's daughter, whom Shlomo had taken as his wife. All these buildings were made of expensive stone blocks, cut to measure and finished by saws on the inner surfaces as well as the outer ones. These stones were used from the foundation to the eaves and outward from the buildings all the way to the great courtyard. The foundation was of expensive stone blocks, very large ones, stones 14 to 18 feet long. Above these were costly stones, cut to measure, and cedar wood. The surrounding great courtyard had 3 rows of cut stone and a row of cedar beams like the inner courtyard of the house of Adonai and the courtyard by the hall of the house. The furnishings of the temple. King Shlomo sent for Hiram and brought him from Zor. He was the son of a widow from the tribe of Naphtali, but his father was from Zor, a bronze worker filled with wisdom, understanding and skill for all kinds of bronze craftsmanship. He came to King Shlomo and did all his bronze work. He made the 2 bronze columns, each one 31.5 feet high and 21 feet in circumference. He made 2 capitals of melted bronze to set on the tops of the columns. Each capital was 8.75 feet high. He also made checker work nets and chained wreaths, 7 for the top of each capital. When he made the columns, he made 2 rows of pomegranates to put at the top of each column around the netting covering its capital. The capitals on the columns in the hall had shapes like lilies and were 7 feet high. As for the capitals on the 2 columns, there were 200 pomegranates in rows around each capital near the molding by the netting. He erected the columns in the hall of the temple. On erecting the right column he gave it the name Yakhin, and on erecting the left column he named it Boaz. On the tops of the columns were shapes like lilies. Thus the work of the columns was finished. He made the cast metal, circular, 17.5 feet from rim to rim, 8.75 feet high and 52.5 feet in circumference. Under its rim, 300 gourds encircled it in 2 rows. They were cast when the sea was cast. It rested on 12 oxen, 3 looking north, 3 looking west, 3 looking south and 3 looking east, all with their hindquarters toward the center. The sea was set on top of them. It was a handbreadth thick. Its rim was made like the rim of a cup, like the flower of a lily, and its capacity was 11,000 gallons. He made 10 bronze trolleys, each one 7 feet long, 7 feet wide, and 5.25 feet high. They were designed with panels that were set between the corner posts. And on the panels between the corner posts were lions, oxen and cherubim. The corner posts above were similarly designed. Below the lions and oxen were wreaths of hammered work. Every trolley had 4 bronze wheels and bronze axles, and its 4 legs each had cast supports which were under the basin, with wreaths next to each. The opening of the stand into which the basin was inserted was 18 inches high. The stand was round, resembling a pedestal, and it was 2.5 feet in diameter. On the stand were carvings, and the outside was square, not round. The 4 wheels were under the panels, and the axles for the wheels were attached to the trolleys. Each wheel was 2.5 feet. The wheels were made like chariot wheels. Their axles, rims, spokes and hubs were all cast metal. There were 4 supports at the 4 corners of each trolley. The supports were attached to the trolley itself. In the top of the trolley was a circular support 10.5 inches high, and the trolley's corner posts and panels were attached to its top. On the sides of the panels and on its corners he carved cherubim, lions and palm trees, according to the amount of space each required, with wreaths surrounding. According to this design he made the 10 trolleys. All of them were cast from a single mold, so that they had the same size and shape. He made 10 bronze basins. Each basin's capacity was 220 gallons and had a diameter of 7 feet. There was a basin for each of the 10 trolleys. He arranged 5 of the trolleys on the right side of the house and 5 on the left side. The sea he placed on the right side of the house, toward the southeast. Hiram made the ash pots, shovels and sprinkling basins. With that, Hiram completed all the work he had done for King Shlomo in the house of Adonai. The 2 columns, the 2 moldings of the capitals on top of the columns, the 2 nettings covering the 2 moldings of the capitals atop the columns. The 400 pomegranates for the 2 nettings, 2 rows of pomegranates for each netting, to cover the 2 moldings of the capitals atop the columns. The 10 trolleys, the 10 basins on the trolleys. The 1 sea, the 12 oxen under the sea. The ash pots, the shovels and the sprinkling basins. All these articles that Hiram made for King Shlomo in the house of Adonai were of burnished bronze. The king cast them in the plain of the Yarden, in the clay ground between Sukkot and Zartan. Shlomo did not weigh any of these objects, because there were so many of them. Thus the total weight of the bronze could not be determined. Shlomo made all the objects that were inside the house of Adonai, the gold altar, the table of gold on which the showbread was displayed. The menorahs, 5 on the right and 5 on the left in front of the sanctuary, of pure gold. The flowers, lamps and tongs of gold. The cups, snuffers, basins, incense pans and fire pans of pure gold, and the hinges of gold, both those for the doors of the inner house, the especially holy place, and those for the doors of the house, that is, of the temple. Thus all the work that King Shlomo did in the house of Adonai was finished. After this, Shlomo brought in the gifts which David his father had dedicated, the silver, the gold and the utensils, and put them in the treasuries of the house of Adonai.